Myself and my partner teacher, Jared Hooper, we get to teach outside of the school, about 10 kilometers west of our high school, in a construction site. We have 32 students. They are all grade 10s. They come from kind of all different backgrounds, academic backgrounds. So there's dash 1, dash 2, dash 3, and dash 4 learners. So very, very kind of wide mix. And the goal of this is actually we're going to be building two different houses. At the same time, they're not just building, they're actually learning as well. So they're in the classroom, which is like a 20 by 20 foot, very cozy garage. And they're learning their English, their math, their science, their social, obviously a ton of construction credits. But they also have leadership and entrepreneurship and physical education and a ton of other things. So the whole thing is supposed to be wrapped together. And the big thing is we want to make this real, like as real as we possibly can. So the kids show up every single day. They bring their work boots, they bring their hard hats, and we get to work. And for some of them, they're actually be working in the classroom, like in our little garage on the typical school things. And then others are actually going to be working inside of the house or outside of the house, actually physically building it. And what's really cool is we're hoping that the cores and the rest of everything is really meeting real world, right? It's real academic stuff intersecting with real world stuff. And we're hoping that through that, we're going to create a little bit of engagement. We're not divided into disciplines, so the bell doesn't go and suddenly we have to stop doing English and start doing math. It's all sort of interchangeable. So it really is fully cross-curricular. And our goal is for the kids to look at some of this and see that the furnace is not just the furnace. It's actually a metaphor, right? It's a metaphor for the heart of the house, but at the same time, scientifically, it's using natural gas to put volumes of hot air and pump that into the house. They read the news. He's actually not reading there. He's totally just pretending. They're reading the news, and at the same time they're reading blueprints. They're getting career advice from the tradespeople that actually come into the classroom. So they're teaching them how to use how to set up electricity, but at the same time how to be on time, how to work hard, how to deal with problems and problem solve. When you think length times width, for us it's the 1,600 feet that we're literally working on and building inside of the classroom. When we're learning globalization, we're actually using an American drill to put like a Chinese-made screw into BC lumber. So we're pretty excited about. And at the end, like I said, we're going to build these two houses. We're going to sell these two houses. We're going to be part of the design. We're really doing just about everything. It's engaging. It's fun. It's every teacher's dream. It's 32 smelly students with X-Acto knives and power tools, right? But it's unbelievable. So this is kind of what I'm going to be talking today. And the first thing that always comes up is, why did we create the Building Futures program? So the first thing, and everybody in this room knows this, but the big one was differentiation. When I went to Teachers College, the big thing, I guess, what I found most important was the work of Myers-Briggs and Gardner. And it's basically everyone has a different personality. They're coming at things from a different perspective, and every single person has a different way to learn, and they're smart in a different way, multiple intelligences. And we all know this, especially as educators, we do know this, but sometimes it's kind of forgotten. The school structure, is not always set up for us to sort of allow this to happen, unfortunately. And we kind of equate academic success to intelligence. And we know that that's not what we want. We know that's not true, but sometimes that's just how it is. Because they're all different, we figured if we gave them a different learning experience, they might succeed. I think there was a little analogy made to me by a university professor, and he said, I want you to think of all of the, school as kind of a pile of animals in the forest, and the teacher says, whoever climbs to the top of the tree is going to get an A. So the bird is psyched, obviously, like no problem, he's getting an A, and the giraffe's pretty, excited about it, and so is like the chimpanzee and the squirrel and the raccoon and everything else in this little imaginary ecosystem. But you have some deer kicking around on the ground saying, well, this sucks, totally, like I don't know how to do this, and the fish is just, man, the test is gonna be really hard, I can't wait for swim class. And this stuck with me because if we think about it, it really, really is true in a lot of ways. I mean, we all know we're smart in very different ways. We have different skill sets, yet school is very set up in one direction. I think the most powerful teaching experience, and something that I'm going to keep with me forever is I had a girl in my class, and every teacher in the room, like, this student. She came in, sat at the back, did not do her homework, did not talk, did not want to hand in an assignment. And one day I walked over, and I didn't really know what to do with her, and she doodled all over her paper, and they were these beautiful drawings. So I went and talked to our art teacher, Mother Wright, who's fairly amazing, and said, well, how's she doing in your class? And she said, well, not too well. It's the same kind of story, interestingly enough. And we came up with this project where we were going to take the play that I was reading, and we were going to sort of mix it together with her art class. And at the end, she took text and images and music, and she put it together, and it was Alberta Ed said it was excellent on their rubric, but like Alberta Ed was wrong. It was brilliant. It was beautiful. It was a higher understanding of anything that I've ever seen from this play. It truly was. And that just clicked for me, right? This girl that was getting 50 in my class had a better understanding than, just about anybody else on this topic. It was really, really powerful. It truly was. So that's like, for me, the big one, right? Differentiation. The next thing is the real world and school don't always mix together, and we know this. Myself, I'm kind of an English teacher, but Jared Hooper's a math guy, and we often argue like what has less relevance, multiplying like negative numbers by negative numbers to get positive ones, or iambic pentameter. Like the jury's out. I don't know which matters less, to be honest. And that's nothing against English, but it's just it's kind of true, right? What can the kids take? Like, what's tangible for them? We had one student in the class, so we were learning about volume, and I don't know I'm sure someone in here knows the formula. I don't. I had to look it up, but we're learning about volume, and so they kind of learned it in the space, and then they went outside, and the track hoe just excavated the whole site, so all the dirt's out of the hole for the house to be built, sitting in a pile. And the kids are measuring and they're kind of getting it. They're seeing that, well, this is volume, right? It's not just like a cylinder on a page that's see-through. Like, this is what volume is about. And we had one kid actually who wasn't really getting it. And then all of a sudden he stopped and he said, oh, well, I don't want to take the volume out of the hole. I'm going to look at the dirt and fill it back into the hole, And all of a sudden he got it. And I don't know if he would have gotten that otherwise. I really, really don't. The other thing about the real world and what school sometimes gets wrong is that we know that, in my English class, like if I give you 70% on To Kill a Mockingbird, like you don't pass in real life, but in English you do. Like Harper Lee's like laughing, like how do you, like what are you talking about 70%? But if you think in construction, like if we have 70% of the drywall up, but it's due tomorrow, I mean, we're not just like, start painting. 70%, we need that. So here, like, we need perfection. We really, really do. And that's what's kind of cool is the kids are learning that as we're building this house, we need perfection. We truly do. And there's no really option. And I think it translates a little bit into their academic work as well. You know what I mean? The idea that like 70 is not good enough. You know what I mean? We can't do 70% of the work. We have to do 100% of the work. That doesn't mean we can't make mistakes, right? It doesn't. It just means we have to do our best to be perfect as we're going. The last thing is, Jared Hooper and myself, we're friends, and we'll often kind of get into these conversations about teaching and how we work by ourselves. And Jared, he's an interesting guy. He was a journeyman mechanic, and then he did the oil and gas industry, and then he went back to school into teaching. Kind of the opposite route of a lot of people, actually, but gave up the big money for teaching. And myself, I didn't really come to teaching directly. I didn't work as hard as him, but I had none of those jobs. But we start talking and we realize that we have never had jobs where we work individually. We don't work by ourselves. So what was really interesting is that as we work together in a team now, we're finding it so much better. We have two very, very different styles, absolutely. Like Jared he's passionate, he's hardworking, he is uber organized. When you go into his class, you'll see the kids making like these math videos on the iPads. It's really, really cool. And my guys are like writing screenplays about like cats that can talk and run restaurants. Like it doesn't, but what's really, really cool is that I find when I go into the room, my weaknesses are minimized. And he sort of takes over where I can't. And we don't always get that. Instead, it's the opposite sometimes. We focus on what we're not. And here we do just the opposite, right? Like I am the best version of teacher me. When I'm next to him. So that's really, really cool. And I think that we hit on all learners in some ways. The ones that I miss, he seems to get. it's easier, and I have to say it's a lot more fun too. We approached our administration. We approached Eddie and we said, "Hey, Eddie, we're hoping we could take 32 kids out of the school and build a house." And Eddie said, "Yes, of course. That sounds great." At no point was it like, "How are you going to do this?" It was, "Yes, and we'll troubleshoot and we'll figure it out." And Eddie asked his boss and Dave, and Dave said yes, and he took it to the great minds at central office, and they said yes. And it was really cool that way because at no point did we focus on it would be difficult. Instead, it was a team of people that all wanted to do something different, saw the benefit, and we started troubleshooting together. They made the funding happen. You might be wondering, how are there two teachers teaching 32 students? Well, they got creative with the credits, and we're not going to take a loss, fingers crossed. Instead, we're going to break even like we try. So that was the big thing. And if I could make a recommendation to any administrator in the room, is just say yes, no matter what the idea is, no matter how zany. Just say yes, because if it's passionate, it's going to be cool. It's going to work. So that was kind of hurdle number one. Now the next was asking the community partners. So we approached McKee Homes. It's a local home builder, and it was kind of funny. Like, I don't know what we were thinking. We walked in the office and we're like, "We'd like you to take a huge loss as 32 unqualified people build a house for our class." And they kind of looked at us and they're like, "Great idea. We'll build 2 houses. That would be better." And what was so cool is that this McKee Homes is very passionate about the community. They want to do right by the community, and they saw this as just an opportunity to do just that. And we had other sponsors as we went. But what I realized is it's so easy to be cynical about big business sometimes. And when you have a business doing what they feel is right, doing something positive for the community, it's really, really refreshing. And I think we can, in a lot of ways, gauge a community by this. I think McKee is exceptional that they did this, but I'd like to say and hope anyway that they're not the exception, that there are other builders or other community leaders that would like to partner with schools and do something sort of creative. So the last kind of worry, I guess, was the tradespeople. So we had one tradespeople, our site manager, and she really made a lot of this happen, Sherry. And she was fantastic. And Jarrett and myself were like, we hope more are like her, but we didn't know. We were really, really nervous. Would they want to help? Would they be good at teaching? Would they swear? All of these fears rushed to us. But what was super cool is that out of, I think it's like 100 trades will build the house at different times, all but 2 crews said they wanted to help. And they wanted to help because they are knowledgeable what they do and they're passionate about what they do. And when they go into the class, it's so unbelievable because they engage the kids with their knowledge and they really, really want to be there. And what's cool is they're natural teachers that way. Like the drywall guy yesterday, his wife made cookies that he brought for the class, and it was unbelievable. It really, really was. So these guys, and they keep on coming in and saying, I wish I had this program. I didn't do well in school. And it's interesting because like they make twice what me and Jarrett make, you know what I mean? Like our salaries combined, and they didn't have success in school, yet they're brilliant. Like they're artists as they work. And it really is funny because here these hugely successful people that are just natural teachers are telling us that they didn't do well in school. So that's kind of the how. And the last piece of this is why we have to do this. The students want change. When we pitched this idea, we had no idea. And when it all kind of came together, we decided as the administration and the builder and all the sponsors came together, and we had a bit of a night. And we said, we're going to meet in the cafeteria and explain to the parents, pitch the idea to the parents. We didn't know how many people would come. We were worried we'd have to go to another school if it could even happen. And we walked into the cafeteria. It's probably about the size of this room, maybe a little bit bigger. And there were parents and students there They filled the place. And they kept on walking in, and it was standing room only by the end of it. And the meeting that was supposed to be like 20 minutes went 2 hours long, and parents were asking all these questions, and it was really, really cool. And by the end, we had, I think, 70 applicants, or over 70 applicants, and it was over 30% of our grade 10 population wanted change, wanted something different. 30% of our population applied for this program. So that's the one reason that I think we have to change. The other is that we need change because innovation is improvement. I think that sometimes as teachers, we kind of can take this personally, like what am I doing? Like what I'm doing is not good enough, and that's not what it is at all. If we change, we're kind of keeping ourselves on our toes a little bit. We're pushing ourselves a little bit, and that makes us better. It really does, and it makes us more engaging to the students. And if we're engaged in something, they will be too. You know, if it's always the same, it can become stagnant. And instead, if it's new, it becomes, I don't know, this new thing that you're excited to teach too. So new ideas, innovation, it is going to be improvement, even if it fails. And when it fails, I'm hoping that, you know, a smarter mind, you know, than mine can kind of come along and say, well, this is how we can make it better. That's sort of the goal. So the last thing is that, if I could ask all teachers in the room, is to build something, and not to build a house, because I need a job next year and I'm building a house, but you can do it if you want. But it's not about building a house. That's, you know, that's the vehicle that I am using, and myself and Jared are using to teach these kids. And that really isn't what it is. But you have to build something. Take your passion, whatever it is, and create something new. And that could be cross-curricular. It could be something with a community partner. It could be, you know, some really cool project that I have no idea about. But if you're creating something, it's going to be new. It's going to be fun for the kids. It's going to be engaging. Sometimes we get caught down a little bit, strangled by the curriculum. And I think if we can adapt the curriculum to our teaching, as opposed to the other way around, it might work a little bit better. So if we can build something, hopefully it'll be a little bit more inspiring. The last thing is, you know, I'm talking like an expert, but I have 5 weeks of experience on this job. That's it. So after a month with zero scientific evidence, if you were asking me is success, I would say 100%. I could tell you that there's no lates or skips or suspensions, you name it, but that's really not what it is. I have to tell you about the students. I had one boy who, at the groundbreaking, we had a big ceremony, gave a speech, and it was a brilliant speech, and he shared the stage with the owner of the building, the owner of the building company, the superintendent of Rocky View Schools, the mayor of Airdrie, the dean of state, and he shared the stage and held his own. I have another student who, you know, doesn't come from a lot of money and finds a way to buy these overpriced work boots that they need for this program. I have a student who was in the office every single day last year, just about, always in trouble. And when they get on the job site, you know, he's laser focused. He's ready to work. I have a girl that kind of floated through grade 9, didn't get great marks, and now she's really inspired, engaged, and she's gone from the -2 to -1 level. I have one student that when he was working, our site manager said that this kid is the perfect combination of ADHD and OCD, and he will be hugely successful one day. And I could not agree more at all. I think if we stop and we think about a student in our class that needs a little bit more support, a program like this could help them. It'll be a true success if we can all go out and sort of build something else in our classrooms. Thank you very much.